Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Bishop Talk. Thank you for being with us in our next episode that we have been doing for the month of June, which is Pride Month. Really around the world, people are celebrating Pride in their different fashions and different means. But today we are honored to continue the series that we've been doing this month, particularly in Pride Month, and that is Pride as a spiritual gift. We've had some talk about Pride as a spiritual discipline and Pride as a spiritual gift, but it's Pride Month, so we're just proud of all the things that we have going on in our lives as advocates, as survivors, as achievers, and not just about one thing or the other, or one group or the other in our community. So thank you for joining us for Bishop Talk. And today we are honored to be our guest is Reverend Keith Mozingo. Keith and I have known, and Bishop will known each other for a very long time. But Keith is currently the senior pastor of the Mother Church, if you will, the founding church, MCCLA. And so we're glad to have you with us. And of course, we also have our host with us, Bishop Durrell Watkins. But first, Keith, we'll let you introduce yourself and tell our viewers what you want them to know about you as we begin our time together today.
Thanks, Robert and Durrell. It's always a pleasure to be in your company and share in this ministry that we get to share together. What a joy, right? It's just a joy to be able to do something that we love to do and bring so much completion and wholeness to our life. I mean, this really is our salvation. I am Reverend Keith Mozingo. As you can tell from my Southern accent, I am not from Los Angeles. I am from Eastern North Carolina and had my start in Metropolitan Community Church in the early 80s at St. John's MCC in Raleigh, North Carolina. Some people that have been around for a while will know the name Reverend June Norris, and then they'll know Reverend Wayne Lindsay, who I served as music director for 5 or 6 years there in Raleigh. Joined in 1989, became ordained in the year 2000, pastored the MCC in Chattanooga, Tennessee, then came out here to Los Angeles for 2.5 years and worked on staff as the Minister of Congregational Care. And then after Hurricane Katrina, we did this caravan of love, and I ended up going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and pastoring there for 11 and a half years. And then it was the 50th anniversary planning for our denomination, and they didn't have a pastor. And I was like, okay, well, one of the folks that was on the pastoral search team came to our church in Baton Rouge and said, Pastor, you have 2 days to get your application in. And I'm like, no, I'm getting ready for retirement. I'm going to move back home to North Carolina and live on the beach and walk on the beach every day and just spend my golden years doing diddly squat. And guess what? Spirit said, go west, young man. So here I am. I applied and got the position and came out here, and I've been here ever since 2018 and just loving it. Just absolutely love this denomination, love this local congregation. It is the founding church. And I love that Troy Perry saved my life. Troy Perry and MCC literally saved my life. We tell people Jesus may have saved my soul, but Troy Perry and MCC saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to be able to be in worship with Troy after all these years of knowing him and knowing that he saved my life. In fact, I just had lunch with him today. They're writing a new biography on his life. And so I was there with he and Philip and the writer for lunch. And then I rushed over here. I said, I have to sneak out. I have to get over. I've got this wonderful interview today with Sunshine Cathedral. And you know that Troy loves you too. So he was like, oh, yes, you go over there. You get that done. So thank you for letting me be a part of Sunshine Cathedral today. Oh, if you'll notice, by the way, you'll notice how I always frame myself in my office in this picture so I can look very Madonna-ish.
Hey, I noticed that. I was like, oh my. I love it. I love it. Well,
optics are everything. It's Hollywood.
Hey, there you go. Well, I'm glad you got to spend some time with Troy and Philip today, and we got to spend some time with them not too long ago when they came through from their cruise, and it was great just to catch up with them.
Yes.
Days. Yeah. Durrell, you want to say anything before we get started here?
I want to say 100 things. Uh, I've got so much. I'm so excited about this. First of all, Troy Perry is the reason I have a ministry. I was Episcopalian. Now you think Episcopalian now, how queer is that? In 1986, 87, not so much. There was like a couple of, there was San Francisco and Newark. That's what you had for queers back in the 80s. And I was in the Diocese of Dallas.
Yeah,
And so the bishop at the time, when I wanted to go through the process, uh, says, but I was always out. I could not be out. I mean, like if I didn't know, other people knew. But the bishop said, it is the policy of this diocese not to ordain avowed homosexuals, whatever that means. Just means I wouldn't lie about it. So anyway, I could either find one of the two denominations, dioceses that would ordain me. I could move. I was in Texas at the time, but I'm from Arkansas. I could go home to Arkansas. The Bishop of Arkansas at the time had been ordained by Bishop Spong, and he had sort of a don't ask, don't tell. Like I can know, but as long as we don't broadcast it, we'll get you in. So I could either go to one of two places, or be semi-closeted, or whatever. And I stumbled on MCC. It's like, you know what? There's a place where you can be yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm pretty progressive and pretty liturgical. Well, MCC's got everything. You'll just be you while someone else is being them. Like we don't demand conformity. I'm like, what? And so, yeah, MCC. I mean, I think my life was already saved by then, but my ministry was saved, or even had a chance to happen because of Troy D. Perry, and that's for all the community churches. So, yeah, Troy will always be my hero. And I'm so excited to talk to one of his direct descendants, really, at the Founders Church. So that's all exciting. I've got a lot of questions for you, but I just wanted to make that little connection about Troy is. I think everybody our age, maybe even 10 years younger than us, that have been around for a long time, I think Troy's probably touched them personally, and certainly that's the
absolutely.
three of us.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Well, again, thank you,
Yep,
Keith and Durrell, for sharing. And again, as we mentioned, this particular talk has really been around pride as a spiritual gift. But Keith, we know that you are right there in the heart of a lot of stuff going on right now in
Count
LA.
zero.
And so you have a lot of stuff going on. But I want to ask this one question before we dive into some of the other meaty stuff. What has it been like for you as the pastor of the founding church to be the pastor to the moderator of the founding church of the Metropolitan Community Churches?
it is very humbling. I still become like a little kid when I'm around Troy Perry. It doesn't matter. I mean, I carry his books around. It's like Troy's here, and those of us that know Troy personally, or have been around him, even if you've never met him, if you've been in the room with him, when he walks into a room, the energy in the room changes. And he's one of those personalities that's bigger than any room. It's bigger than life. So it's very humbling to be here at this church with Troy being here. And I'll tell you something even more humbling. He makes no bones about it that he'll call me pastor. He doesn't call me Keith. He doesn't call me Reverend Mozingo or Rev Keith or Pastor Keith. He calls me pastor. And I just melt every time he does because it's such a big mantle to carry that I know others have carried before me. But it's such a big mantle, but he makes it so easy. Almost every Sunday, if he's in the room, he'll just tell me how much he enjoys the sermon. If he's not in the room, he will text me sometimes during the service after I sit down and say, "Oh, that was it. That was it. That was really good going. Yes, that was a great sermon." And tell me how much he loves me and how much he appreciates me. I can pat myself on the back a little bit, but it'll tell you Troy's sense of humor. When I came here to candidate to be the pastor, um, Troy usually makes his will known before he leaves and then doesn't stay in a business meeting
Mm,
because he doesn't want to influence everybody else. He
right.
wants people to make their own minds up without his input here. at the church and I didn't know any of this, by the way. And he had Steve to stay at the business meeting and to call him as soon as they knew whether I had been voted in as the pastor or not. And so after service, after the meeting, Steve called him and he said, "Okay, tell me what the vote is," because Troy loves numbers. He said, "What was the vote? What did he get? What did he get?" And he said, "Troy, we've never done this in the history of MCC. He got 100% of the vote." Troy said, "100%? I didn't even get 100%. I only got 96%." So that's Troy's sense of humor. And of course, he was very gracious about it. But I think he told me that so that I can remember he is a real human being. He is a real person that does not overreach. He's not trying to overtake. He lets us do what we need to do. If he's ever had a complaint, he's kept it to himself. He's always complimentary, and I think you would just about have to be to keep somebody here.
Yeah.
Because it's big shoes to fill after him. So it's just very humbling, and I always just honor him, and I try to honor him every opportunity I can to keep his name alive and keep it ever before our congregation and even out in the community groups to make sure that people know. And we'll get into that a little bit later because of the first Pride.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me chase that rabbit.
We have the Reverend Elder Don Eastman in our congregation. It's a very similar, I mean, I'm here 19 years already.
Yes.
And I bet it was a decade.
Yes.
I didn't flinch when he called me pastor. You know what I mean? It's like, that's Don Eastman. So
right.
we have some similar experience with that. Like, it is humbling. And
in our world, these people are canonized
for me, it's
like Moses.
I better step up. Don's watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get into the meat of our discussion for today. And like I said, you got a lot going on out there in LA. It's Pride Month. Celebrations are happening. So I'm just going to tip it off. What do you want us to know, or what do you want to share with us around? I'm just going to what's going on. If you want to do it politically, if you want to do it from a pride point or advocacy point, what can you share that you want to share that's really is the highlight of what's happening in LA right now around whether it's the riots, or they're not really riots, the protesting that's going on, the advocacy that's going on, your role in all of this, and just what do you want us to know at this point?
Robert is such a diplomat. You are living in an occupied territory. Tell us what that's like.
There you go.
Let's just say that most of our Latin family members, chosen family members, neighbors are afraid. They're just fearful. Really, they're just fearful. They're afraid to go out the door. They're afraid to go almost anywhere. What's really happening? So, you mentioned the word riots. A lot of the news around the world is calling it riots, and they're the president and this administration have constantly talked about, oh, LA's out of control and there's all this stuff. What has really happened? I mean, you've got to understand that I'm from North Carolina. The population of Los Angeles County is as big, if not bigger, than the whole state of North Carolina. The county I live in is huge. It's over 500 miles long. And, we talk about even downtown Los Angeles, what you're hearing where they've, thrown some fireworks and thrown a few rocks and some water bottles and that kind of thing at the police and the National Guard, all of that. It's within about 3, 4, 5 block at the most radius. It's less than a mile in one area of downtown. I've been down three times last week. I was downtown for protest. I never felt, one of my neighbors said, "Are you sure you want to go down there? Are you afraid? Aren't you afraid?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to protest with a lot of other people." I mean, if anybody knows how to protest, Los Angeles knows how to protest. And we were out there even on Saturday, for hours and hours. We were out there most of the day. Here's what people don't always understand is that there are always rebel rousers. There are always agitators. There are always people that want to take advantage. We saw it several years ago in the Black Lives Matter movement, when we were out in the streets marching. It wasn't any of the Black Lives Matter protesters that were breaking into stores or doing any of the graffiti or looting stores, any of that kind of stuff. Though they were people who were, some from out of state, who came in and took advantage. They would veer off of the protest routes and go do their menacing work and then go off somewhere. And then the protesters got the blame. 3 times I was downtown last week, and I will tell you, as we would start to leave, you would see a handful of people coming towards town instead of going away from town, instead of leaving with all the protesters. And I'm not talking about lots of people. I'm talking about maybe a dozen people. We're not talking about great numbers of people. But you could tell the energy in the city, it changed. You could see on their faces, at least what you could see, most of them were covered, and all you could see was their eyes. Yeah. But you knew they were up to no good. And they're there taunting the police. They're there doing all of these crazy things. And then you've got conservative news out there reporting, oh, they heard a firecracker. Oh my God, it must be a riot. And people are getting killed and people are shot at. And we're all like shaking our heads like, what are you talking about? We're walking away from it. We can even see it happening. I'm not saying the police have not agitated a bit themselves or started something themselves. Sometimes they get a little overzealous, and there's that anywhere. But overall, we're here very supportive of our police department, most of us, and we're very supportive of what they've done, and they've been able to control it. We're still scratching our heads, trying to figure out why, from a security level, they would send in the National Guard, they would send in the Marines. All of that is just so totally unnecessary. I will say this: I was with our pastor of justice for a long time here at Founders. By the way, this is saying my internet connection is unstable. If I go off, just point at me or something, and I'll wait a couple of seconds and come back on. But I was down there downtown with Lucia Chappelle at the prayer vigil, an interfaith prayer vigil last week, and our mayor was there. And you were talking about how humbling it is to be with Troy. When our mayor got up at that interfaith prayer vigil and didn't just talk to all the people there, but literally prayed for this city. It was so humbling. She prayed an interfaith prayer, and I know she's a woman of faith, but being in her presence and her unapologetically praying for her city and praying that the eyes of the world would be open to what's happening, what's really happening, not what is projected to be happening, but what's really happening. Let me go another step. We're talking about pride, and 2 weeks ago, by the way, we've done multiple pride events. We've been in Huntington Park, where MCC started. We're invited to their pride of resources all about Troy Perry and how Troy introduced pride to Huntington Park in 1968. So we didn't even have to tell the story. They were telling it for us. We've been involved with them. We were in Long Beach Pride. We were in West Hollywood Pride. Then last weekend, we were in the Los Angeles Pride, better known as Christopher Street West, which is the pride that a lot of people don't realize that Troy and 2 other community leaders started and had to sue the city of Los Angeles to even have it. If you'll remember, this was 1970, a year after Stonewall, and they wanted to do a pride parade. And of course, it was illegal to be homosexual. You could be arrested. Your homes could be raided. The bars were constantly being raided. If you went out in the opposite sex clothes or disguise In other words, if you were trans or a drag queen or a drag king, you could be arrested right on the street, on the spot. Um, and here's Troy suing the city to have a parade so we could, you know, go down the parade. And literally got word the day before that the lawsuit had been settled and they got the permit to have the parade. The day before the parade, this is pre-internet. This is get on the phone and call everybody around the state that you know. And they all showed up, and we've been having pride parades ever since. And I thought 2 weeks ago, as we're marching almost the original route of the first parade, and I was interviewed by the news, and they had already interviewed Troy several years ago, so they knew all about us and who we were and what a historical moment it was that we've been doing this since 1970. And then they had this huge street festival, and we had a booth at the festival. Thousands, not hundreds, thousands of people came to our booth. I mean, we had tchotchkes and giveaways and all this. You would not believe the stuff that we were. I have to restock for this coming weekend because we gave away so much stuff. But not only that, 7 people, 7 took communion at our booth out there on the street. And if you don't think that'll move you to say just 2 miles away, 2 miles, 2 miles, we're here, we're in all of these festivities, we're giving communion on the street at a queer pride festival that was started by our church. And 7 people we're giving communion to for the first time in many years.
I'm saying I know that at least one of those hadn't done that for decades.
For decades.
They did it.
For decades. And just 2 miles away, we've got ICE and Homeland Security and out on the streets trying to arrest people and trying to create problems. And to think, it's amazing how that moment, our people needed that moment together, because there is a lot of stress in the air right now. You're talking about being in ground zero. There's a lot of stress. There are a lot of people not resting. A lot of people are afraid to leave their homes. We needed that moment to be out on the street and to be that witness. I believe that is what we're here talking about today, that spiritual witness, that gift of pride. It's not a gift of the kind of pride, oh, I'm so proud of myself. That's not. It's about self-respect and about respecting our neighbors and loving our neighbors and creating safe spaces.
Yes.
Now I want to go a step further.
Pride is pushing back against the shame others have tried to impose on you.
Yes.
It's not saying I'm better than anybody else. It's saying, and nobody else is better than me.
Yeah.
I know Robert's got some questions that he's just aching to get out, and I'm going to let him do it. But first, because you said something about witness, I just want to tell people watching, or who will be watching, because this is on demand, you can watch it forever, that, of course, pride events, pride parades, these booths, these festivals, that's a great witness. We've got to be out there. Even these protests, it's a great witness. But Founders Church during COVID was very present on the internet. The world shut down. A lot of people discovered what even the internet was. And during that time, Sunshine Cathedral had, we were present online. And I looked to some places to feed me, because then I had to nourish other, and there were 4 or 5, and one of them was Founders Church. You had a midweek thing. You would sit at the piano. You'd have a little costume going on, and you'd sit at the piano and you play hymns. And you think, well, no, I looked forward to it. That it just being present, and these familiar tunes, and even if tacky drag, glam drag, whatever kind of drag is seditious. And so here's this like testament to a part of our history, and then this other testament to even longer histories, maybe from the churches that rejected us, whatever. It was very important to me, week after week, to see Penny Costal or the pastor, or however it turned up, to play these hymns, sing these hymns, have a little word. It was you have shown the power of witness This isn't the first crisis because I was looking to you, among others, in COVID, and you were there every single week. And so I just want to point that out that witness is powerful, sometimes more powerful than even these elegant words we try to string together. And you've been doing it for a while.
Mm.
Well, thank you. I had no idea. I know that I did the same thing. I was watching you. I would watch your services to feed me as well because we were all stuck at home, right? And we all became televangelists, whether we wanted to be or not.
Right.
And so thank God for the streamers. And of course, the internet around here was just, it was horrible. We'd constantly get kicked off, and we would just stop and wait till we got back on and started, keep going, just, and then they would try to fix it during the week to put it all together into one cohesive service. But you're right. We had to stick with each other. And we're doing that again. I want to make sure that I say this as a witness, as part of our protest, as a part of our resistance. Our white-skinned people have to take the lead on this. Our white-skinned people build something called a white wall every Sunday at our Spanish-speaking service. And what that means is what we consulted with an immigration lawyer. We even had an immigration lawyer that speaks Spanish to come and talk to our people to make sure they knew they could get representation very quickly and have a name in their pocket. They have his card in their pocket. He speaks their language. And I tried to stay away from the actual meeting. I just kind of wandered around the periphery to make sure everything was okay. But they asked him very specific questions about their own personal situations. And I didn't want to know. I don't need to know. I don't need to know what their personal situation, unless they want me to know. But I want them to feel. We learned, that they can't come in without a warrant that's been signed by a judge. We learned that they can come into the sanctuary because it's a public place. They can come right into your worship service if the door's open. If you've opened it for people and it's saying everybody's welcome, well, that means ICE and Homeland Security and the Marines and everybody else is welcome. But if you put up a sign on a door off of that says this is authorized personnel only, and we tell people every single Sunday, if you feel threatened or somebody comes in here, you jump up and run right on past us up here on the stage and go through that door that's marked clearly, because we can't keep them from getting you when you leave the church, because you'll eventually have to leave. But it gives our people time to calm down for a second, to call and make arrangements for their pets or their children or their job or their home, their apartments, and their car, where's their car parked, and who can go take their car home, and that kind of thing. It gives them time, and it gives us time to go and hug them and cry with them and comfort them, and then go out with them if we need to, and pray with them so that they know that whatever happens, we are there. So they can also contact their lawyers while we are in their presence. So there's that. But at our 1:30 service, one of the things that we were concerned about, will people even come to church? Because they're afraid, and they know that ICE and Homeland Security can come on the premises and even come into the sanctuary. So what we've started doing at church at 1:30 when service starts, we lock the doors. We tell people they have to come through the courtyard to get in, which is, it's just a few steps. You can see the gate. We keep white-skinned people at the gate, and the gate is locked. So if anybody comes to service late, yes, we can let them in. If ICE or Homeland Security shows up, they can't come in the gate. It's private property. They cannot come in. That's whoever's out there can come and get me, and I will go out there and deal with them, but they cannot come in that gate. So we call it the white wall. This is if you're going to come here, you're going to have to go through the white wall to get to our brown and black skinned people. And we are just not having, and other, because we have a large Hispanic group. We have a large Asian group. And some of our Asian folks are just as afraid to come as well.
Sure.
It,
We have
it's
a
so we
citizen.
keep the white wall.
We have a citizen in our congregation who's from an Asian country. He's going home to visit his family soon, and he's concerned that he might not be able to get back in. He's a citizen.
Mm.
So we're telling
Yes.
him, check in with your lawyer first, have all your
Yes.
documentation and whatnot. But some pastor needs to hear this. I mean, we're saying it all over the place. Hopefully everybody knows it, but for that pastor who doesn't know, yes, our sanctuary is public. My office is not.
Not.
And
Nope.
so there's a way we can keep you safe for a minute. We can't defy the US government, the empire forever, but we can give you respite. We can give you some sanctuary. Our sanctuary is public. My office is private. And that's what every pastor needs to know.
I think what you're both really, I mean, you're both senior pastors of churches, and I think what I'm hearing from both of you at this point is really, first of all, seminary or our theological training did not prepare us for this. In any shape, form, or fashion. It did not prepare, but it gave us a constructive foundation theologically about how to respond to it. And that certainly is out of compassion, with love, justice for all. But what we're talking about is practical things that, uh, you know, we have to be aware of about how we can protect our congregations, protect those that we serve, and even those that we don't know that or that as I said where I am right now, our congregation is not just about those who come and make this their spiritual home. It is the community at large. I mean, we really are
Yes.
communities, congregations.
Every Pride Parade, we're reminded of our constituents. They may not be parishioners, but they are constituents. People screaming out, "That's my pastor." I don't know who the hell that person is.
Right. Right.
Or like, "Oh yeah, I think I've seen you a Christmas or two or whatever." But no, they identify with, like, we represent them.
Yeah.
They may
Yes.
not. So we forget, but we're reminded every Pride, we
Yes.
are there for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we've got to be.
Yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
what we're hearing is like practical things that we have to be aware of in order to do ministry. I mean, this is ministry 2025. This is not it's not the I was raised in Alabama Baptist. You got a different kind of feel growing up in the South with that type of religion in your background. But in 2025, this is almost, and I hate to say, I mean, this is almost like we have to do hand-to-hand combat in a different kind of way, just to make sure our people, our spaces are respected, and also make it be a safe place for all people. And so, Keith, that's what I'm hearing a lot of what you're, I mean, as Durrell articulated much better for me. You are in occupied land right now. You are ministering in occupied land, and controlled by elements that are out of your, almost seems like your governor's control, but really we know how that law is probably going to end up going. But at the same time, you're pastoring to people, practically, and ministering to them. So, what has it been like for you to? I'm say what you've described being on the front line, but what has it been like for you personally to be on the front line?
It reminds me of coming out of the closet myself. Except that back in those days, again, it was illegal to be gay.
Mm-hmm.
I was a school teacher. I was very concerned that every time I would go to the office and check my mailbox, and there was a note from the principal saying, "Please see me before you leave today," I would just be in horrors the rest of the day. Oh my God, have they found out? Do they know who I am? They're afraid I'm working around these children and blah, 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 blah. And then I would go in the afternoon and just hold my breath, and they'd say, "Oh, so-and-so is going to be out tomorrow. Can you cover bus duty?" And I'm like, "Oh,
is that all?"
oh, thank you. Oh, I always got picked to do those things. And I was so happy to do it because I wasn't getting fired. I wasn't going to be turned into the police.
Yay, bus duty.
Yes, yay. But I realized, I mean, that's certainly not even comparable to what we're dealing with now and what these people are dealing with. And I try to put myself into their shoes and to say, what is it that I would want someone to do for me in this situation? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, back in those days, finding St. John's, that was a safe place. It wasn't just a spiritual sanctuary. I mean, we grew up in church. The sanctuary is the place to go worship, right, where we all gathered for worship. But I never thought of it as a safe space.
Right.
I just thought of it as a worship space. And what I want to make sure that I'm constantly doing is reminding myself and reminding our whole congregation that we want to create a safe space. I mean, at the same time that we've got all of this craziness going on about immigration, we've also got the trans issues that, the president's making a big deal about, that it's just trans, 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 trans. We have a major trans unity group at our church,
Hmm.
and some of them are afraid to come. And
Hmm.
then put on top of that, some of our trans folks are Latin or immigrants, and they're scared.
Hmm.
And it's a double whammy. And so you're like, whoa. So my deal is to make sure that I am, first of all, I'm trying to take care of myself.
Hmm.
And that's not easy
Hmm.
because I'm a very emotional person. I'm very emotional. And so I'm trying to, I planted some flowers and some peppers and tomatoes on my little balcony. And I try to make some time to go sit with that and check on it every day, just to make sure I'm doing something that's not out there with
Yeah.
all the craziness, without the background noise. Um, if you're friends with me on Facebook, I post about 500 things a day, and that's just letting it out.
Hmm.
Just it's therapy. It's not even now anymore about making sure people know. It's just
Hmm.
let me get this out of my system. Let me pour it out here because I don't want to pour it on other people.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want live people sitting with me. They count on me to be the level one. And it's like, okay, I tell people all the time, the hardest part of being a pastor, there is not one hard thing that we do as pastors, except this, being present in the moment with whatever is happening.
Hmm.
Because, in the morning, I may be dealing with a couple who's having all sorts of problems and they just need someone to pray with them and give them a resource for a gay or lesbian counselor or whatever that they can go and talk to. And then in the afternoon, I may be talking to another couple that's wanting to get married. And by evening, I may be at the hospital visiting someone who's just found out they're terminal. And you've got to be, it's like emotions are all over. It's like ping pong. It's like, oh, that's not even ping pong. It's something more stressful than that. But you know what I mean?
Well,
It's the hard part is trying to compartmentalize all of these things and be present in the moment and
yeah.
let go and say, okay, I have to leave home. I have to leave the dog. I'm not sure, sometimes I'll go and say, I'll say, I love you, Fairfax. I'll be home as soon as I can. That's all I can give you. I'll here's some pee pads just in case, right? I'll be home as soon as I can. And sometimes you don't know when you leave home when you're going to come back. It's
Yeah.
just so much going on. So trying to take care of myself is part of it. And I think I'm really thinking about in these crazy times. I may have to. You're like the fifth person in the last month that has mentioned those Tuesday and Friday evening hymn 15 minutes of music. I may have to start doing that again because I think people, it may de-stress people.
Mm.
I have people, saying from all over the world saying, I look forward to this. Why did you quit? And I'm like, because we had to get back to other things. We're back in person
Thing.
again. And,
I'm not trying to add to your workload. I'm just saying that when it happens, and I don't think I ever saw them live. I usually caught them, I think, on Wednesdays. And so I don't even think I saw them live, but they were there and they were
they're
meaningful
there.
to me. So I'm not trying to add to your workload now. I just appreciate what you were doing
Yes.
when
Well,
we were all
I
stuck at
think
home.
if if it comes back, it will probably not be 2 days a week, but it may be once a month or maybe once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But it may actually be Pastor Pentecostal that does it as opposed to Pastor Keith doing it.
I've seen
Because,
both. It's all the same
she
good
can get
business.
on TikTok and do something. Yes, absolutely.
I know we're bumping up against some time constraints here, but we've talked about Pastor Keith the activist and Pastor Keith the pastoral caregiver. Uh, I would like to know a little bit about again for pastors because the world is different and pastoring is different and churches are different. pre-COVID and pre-Trump, I'll say it. The world is different than it was pre, and church health looks different. Church vitality looks different. Church, getting people into church looks different. What success looks like looks different. People who used to come to church 2 or 3 times a month, that was regular. Now, if they come 2 to 3 times every 2 months, that's regular. And you still have the same financial worries, and you're still trying to give a good message to people, whether they come or not, and uplift spirits. And it's just a different thing. And we have to deal with not only the critics, but also our inner critics. Like, wow, this doesn't look like 1995. What am I doing wrong? Well, for 2025, you might not be doing anything wrong because it's not 1995 or whatever. Or how can we do things differently or better? Or how can we reach more people, whether we see them or not? It's just a different world. And pastors are always having to tell themselves and each other, don't give up. Don't personalize this. The world is different, and we're all working out how to minister to this different world. So what's that like? And I know LA is a big separate deal. It might not be the same in Morgantown somewhere or Springfield somewhere, but it's the only difference is the community, the size of the community. The issues, I think, are pretty universal. So just tell us your experience of that, or maybe give an encouraging word for people who are like, what am I doing wrong? You might not be doing anything wrong.
We said at when we were getting to the end of the lockdown of COVID, we started hearing people say, "Oh, what's the new normal? What's the new normal? What's the new normal? Or what's going to be the new normal?" And I changed that because I couldn't deal with the new normal. I didn't know what, because it was so topsy turvy to our whole world, to the way we interact, to the way I go to the grocery store. It's not the same way I go to the grocery store. Sometimes I'm wearing a mask when I go to the grocery store, even now, because I'm like, ugh, especially if I've had a sniffle or I sneezed that morning. I'm like, oh, got to put on a mask because I don't know what's coming. But I'm more aware. So we have this awareness. But I started saying, what's the new next? What's the new next? I've got to be available for the new next. And whatever the new next is, it may be the new normal. It may be what comes on and on and on, or it may just be a very temporary thing. It may last a month or two, and then we're on to the next, and then we're on to the next, and then we're on to the next. So I started preaching that constantly. What's the new next? What's the new next for us? And am I willing to go with it? And I think, many of us, I came out of Pentecost. It was hard for me to let go of Pentecost when I came into MCC. Because, we didn't have communion every week. And I'm like, what's this big to do about communion every week? All this high church stuff that I'm
I
not
thought
used
MCC
to,
was
right?
Pentecostal.
I mean, where's Troy in all of this? He's Pentecostal. He didn't grow up with this. I don't know why this is so important. I had to learn. And it was a new next coming from the Pentecost, whatever church we came from, whatever we were used to. It was another new next. And then you come through this COVID thing, and none of us knew what to do. What's been empowering to me is what you said a while ago. Nobody else knew what to do either, because none of us were around when the Spanish flu was, killing hundreds and thousands of people all over the world. We didn't know what to, the world was different, but none of us were here to experience that. So what do we do now? And so what I've tried to do is pay attention to who's coming in, the newer folks, pay attention to who they are and what they are and how they think and what they're looking for, and to listen to them. And I've been amazed at the people that have come in since COVID, because it's what you said a while ago, Durrell. A lot of our folks, people that are old saints that have been in this denomination for 50 years, that are all of a sudden, saying to me, Pastor, I'll see you every Sunday, but you'll see me about once a month. And I'm like, what? And they're like, I'll see you every week. I'm online. I'll keep sending my tithe money in. I'm going to keep supporting the church, and I don't want you to feel bad. But I'd have never thought I would say this, but I've really enjoyed having service in my bathrobe and my bunny slippers.
Yes,
And I'm
yes.
like,
and if we're going to offer it, we can't be mad when people take it.
That's right. But now what can I do to make service for them? I've got to make sure that I'm not just preaching to the people in the room.
Exactly.
I'm looking at that camera constantly, and I'm referring to those people constantly and inviting them to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And also inviting people to be members from. We've now got members from Italy and other Canada and other places. Well, great. How can you be a part of the service? They said, but I'm not here. You know, in your membership class, you ask for people to take on a ministry. And I'll say, and you can minister right where you are. You don't have to be in Los Angeles to minister, because I was ministering long before I was in LA, and so were you.
Exactly.
Wherever you are, you've been a minister for a long time. We're all called in ministry. So
In
it's
our
the
own
new
context, this is a Book of Acts moment.
Yeah.
It is. It absolutely is. In all of the language, go do your understanding. And these new folks that are coming in have some great ideas. My question to Keith is always these days, how close again are you to retirement? Because you're a lot closer than you were 7 years ago when you got here. Do you have the energy? You have the will. You know, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I'm like, do I have the energy to lead these people through it? But then turn around and say, wait, maybe my leadership is being the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Maybe my role is really cheering your ministry on. Somebody came to me yesterday and said, oh, I have this great idea, Pastor. I'd really like for us to be doing this. And I said, please make sure you're saying you'd like for us to be doing that. You're not just handing me this great idea and saying, Pastor, here's a great idea. I want you to go over there and do it, because that ain't going to happen. I can't take on any more ministries. I have all the ministries I can handle, but I can be a great cheerleader for you and your ministry. Yeah. And by the way, I'm always cautious about who I tell that to, because not everybody that has a great idea is equipped to lead it themselves either. So I don't just throw it back at them, but I can say, let's look at the membership papers. Let's look at what people turned in as their gifts and their ministries and what they have an interest in. And let's see if we can put a group together and make that happen. So that I'm not over it. I can get you together, and then you all make that happen. But our folks are talking about, they're talking about something that I still don't have a good handle on. I'm 66, by the way. I still don't understand what pop-up church is. And they keep talking about, Pastor, we've got to do pop-up church. And I'm like, okay, let's do pop-up church. I don't know what that is. What is it? How do we do it?
Did it Pride with those 7 people in communion. You did it already.
You did it already. You did it at Pride.
We did it. We did it at Pride. We've got to make sure to be a presence. And you know, we had Trans Pride this past weekend. We were out protesting in downtown LA from 9 o'clock until about 2 in the afternoon. Then we left there and went directly to the Trans Pride at the LGBT Center. And our trans group was just amazing. We must have had 40 or 50 people out between the two events making that happen. And they gave communion to several people at the Trans Pride on Saturday. I'm just like, I that was something that had never even crossed my mind. But I've got a younger student clergy who is bringing these newer ideas. And then somebody came up this Saturday. We're going to be at Santa Monica Pride, which is not a parade. It's just a festival on the promenade. And we'll be one of 3 or 4 churches that show up. But we noticed something last year. We were the only church that had anything about trans people. And the other churches always said, they all said, yes, we're open and affirming. Yes, we're open and affirming. And I heard one of my people say that. And I pulled her off to the side. I said, don't you dare tell people we're open and affirming again. Don't let me hear that again. She just looked at me startled. I said, we're not open and affirming. Open and affirming means you didn't used to be open and affirming. We've always been the gay church. We're the original
celebrate.
Church. You get out there and tell people this is the original. And now they're making signs saying the original gay church and putting it on our tables. And we're having trans flags put up, and we're putting and we have a trans scholarship for LGBTQ people to sign up for. They do yard sales and other fundraisers. Our trans unity group, all you folks that may have been overlooked
Yeah.
that want scholarship money. They've given out like $35,000
Yeah.
over the last few years in
That's
scholarships.
amazing. That's amazing.
It is.
Robert's going to be
And so
mad at
we
me.
just got to make sure that we're out there being that witness and being that pop-up church, whatever that means.
I think you're doing it. Robert's going to be mad at me because we're bumping up against time and I keep asking you to talk. And that
And I got another question, so this is fine.
Okay.
Like we're rubbing up time and we're like, okay, but I'm going to say one more thing. And because we're talking about trans and you were talking about this white wall to be really in complete solidarity with brown and black people and immigrants, and whether or not they have papers, that is so unimportant to me, whether or not you have documentation, you're a person.
Yes.
And so I want you to talk about, because it seems like you're providing this also, a cis wall. We are three supposedly cisgender people on this conversation. I actually identify as non-binary, but I realize I am cis-presenting. And so there's these three guys, let's say. So I think we need some sort of cis wall, because when cis people, when straight people stand up in solidarity for queer people, with queer people, maybe they even identify as queer themselves, these straight people, that is so powerful. Same thing with, when white people use their privilege to protect people who don't yet have that same privilege or whatever. And I think that trans people are so under attack, drag performers are so under attack, non-binary people are so under attack. So can you, as a cis man, presumably straight white, a cis gay white man, can you say something not only affirming of our trans siblings and non-binary siblings and genderqueer siblings, but also to cis people? Because I think even cis gay people are sometimes way too hesitant about being in solidarity with our queer friends. I mean, with our trans friends. Can you speak, one, to our trans friends, and two, to our cis friends who really need to step it up?
That there is sometimes discrimination in our queer community. I've heard other people of faith even say, gay people of faith that say, we really should just be LGB. We really made a mistake when we included the T's. They should be out fighting their own battles.
It's heartbreaking.
And I quickly remind them that this denomination, and as a pastor in this denomination, that we are about Jesus's mission, which is to advocate and stand in solidarity with the oppressed. With the oppressed. There were no limits on what the oppression was or who was doing it. It was, we stand with the oppressed. Jesus over and over and over stood with the oppressed and fought for the oppressed and told us that the oppressed were our neighbors. And they can't always do it themselves. I mean, I preached that sermon a few weeks ago about the man lying by the water waiting for the angel to trouble the water, and he's been out there for 38 years, and he says, I can't do anything about it. I can't get in there fast enough. And then you start thinking about in this year, because we preached that sermon, how many years have we been preaching from that scripture? But I saw something different this time, and it's like that when Jesus walked by, he sees this whole group of less thans. He sees this whole group of DEI folks. He sees this whole group of people that have been gathered at one particular area of town. Everybody knows over there at that pool, who's over there.
I got chills.
They're the oppressed people. That's right. And so, but Jesus took his disciples by there, and he didn't go all the way to the pool. He goes to the man out in the group that can't get to the pool and says, you've got to stand up. You have to stand up. Even though you're not well, you've got to stand up. He could have just as well been saying, act up, fight back, act up, fight back, stand up. You've got to stand up. You've got to stand up. And this time I was thinking about it. It wasn't just the man, because we have no record that Jesus did anything for anybody else out there other than just walk on by, healed the man, walked on, left him. What happened after that man took up his bed and walked? I have a feeling it was like when we first went through a pride parade the first time. I had on a straw hat and big sunglasses and scared to death that my principal was going to see me on TV on the news that night. But about halfway through the parade, the glasses came off, and I think I threw the hat out in the crowd. I didn't even care anymore. There's something healing when you stand up. When you stand up, it brought healing to me as I stood and walked, and it brought healing to other people around us when we are healed. And so I tell my cis friends, my cis LGBT folks, we've got to stand up for our trans folks. These are trans. And, 2 years ago on Easter, there was the big push about drag queens in particular, but it was in combination with all of the trans laws that were being
Right.
funneled around the world, around the United States. And I here they are on Easter Sunday. They're going to have in West Hollywood a drag march in solidarity with our trans, our gender fluid, our drag folks, and all that. And my creative worship team said, Pastor, I mean, I got invited to go over and speak, to be one of the speakers. They said, you have to go as Pastor Penny. And they said, in fact, you need to come to church on Easter Sunday and preach as Pastor Penny. And I was like, no, that's for fun. She's for fun. No, I can't do that on Easter Sunday when we're probably going to have new people and, people that never come. And I said, yes. I go out there, and people could not believe that the pastor of a church had preached in drag. And I told them, I said, here's the deal. I'm not trans. I'm not gender fluid. I am a cis gay man, and I can't identify with all of that other stuff. But I can. So I can't come out here as a trans person. I can't come out here as anything other than a cis man. But I can come out here as a cis man in drag. And I invited the whole congregation to come in drag, and they did.
Mm.
Even our trans folks came in drag. I was like, I have never even seen such a thing. I didn't know you could do that.
Wow.
But they did. And then we all marched together out in the march that afternoon. We have to stand up for each other. Do you know, Reverend Steve Peters years ago was invited to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I admired about this was President Clinton. He got to sit right by President Clinton, and President Clinton turned to him and asked what he would like to share and what was on his mind. And Steve didn't talk about the LGBTQ community. He talked to him about immigration. What are you going to do about immigration?
Mm.
Now, why am I telling you that in the midst of this one where you asked me about us cis people? Because our denomination is built on a personal experience with God in your own way, a community that is gathered, and social justice, meaning we have to stand with whoever is oppressed. It means we fight not only for our own stuff, but we stand as Jesus did with the oppressed.
Yes. Yeah.
It's that simple.
Wow. Well, this time flew by, but I just want to do
Everybody
one.
understands we had some church, right? Everybody knows
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I'm ready for somebody to put up a text to give or a cash app or something or another here.
We'll take your offerings for pop-up churches.
But we have had churches, metropolitan community churches, and pastors who led us into COVID, led us during COVID, led us out of COVID. Keith, I remember seeing, I think you posted at one point on your balcony about how close the fires were to where you were living, and was preparing.
You've been right on the edge so many times.
And we watched that, and now we're watching you, in occupied territory, living experience. And so
you postponed retirement for all of this.
Yeah, you postponed retirement for all this. And again, they didn't teach us in anybody's seminary or anyone's intensive. We were just all worried about other things going on back then. But here we are now, 2025, living and being practical with our ministry. I will say, I think all of that equipped us for what we are doing now. I definitely believe that, God, the equipped are where they need to be right now, doing what they need to do to get us through these times. And I think you're certainly one of those. But as we wrap up, I just want to say, what will be your part? What is your parting word? The people who find themselves And I'm going to say specifically in occupied territory right now because you California, you're the front line.
Chicago, New Orleans, New York.
Yeah.
The urban areas is where he's coming.
Yeah, you guys are really on the front lines right now. So what will be your message to people who find themselves right where you are and to people who are beyond that in other areas like Durrell mentioned, but also to people who may not be feeling it as much as you are, but they feel it in a different kind of way. What's your pastoral response for them as we wrap this up?
I have to constantly go back to the Advent message. The Advent message, that we need a message, and no matter what's going on around us, the message is there's faith, there's hope, there's love, and there's joy.
Mm,
And I have to find a way through all of the stress, through all the rigmarole. I have to find those four things in my life. And I try to remind myself every day that those things are always available to me. And I will tell you one thing I do appreciate about growing up in Pentecost is that I know the Holy Spirit for myself.
mm,
I know when the Holy Spirit speaks to me. Some people are not quite sure when that voice is, because sometimes the voice is an idea or a thought or a song on the radio or something they saw on a sign outside. It doesn't matter how the Holy Spirit speaks to us, but for me, that Spirit constantly speaks. And I try to constantly, no matter how outraged I get at what's going on, no matter how stressed I get, no matter how much afraid, because sometimes I do get afraid. I absolutely do. That we're all human, and it's okay for all of that. But I don't want to be paralyzed with fear.
mm.
There's a difference in being afraid and being fearful. And so I try to tell people it's okay to be afraid. We can march while we're afraid. We can keep going while we're afraid. We can stand up while we're afraid. We can act up while we're afraid. But we can't if we're paralyzed.
Mm.
And so we're constantly praying for that washing over us of the Spirit to remind us that we can have the love and the joy and the peace and the hope. I was even thinking this morning, I was planning to preach something else, I think, for this Sunday about the demon possessed man in the valley. And this morning I just kept feeling like that's not it. That's just not it. So we need a message of hope. God, we need a message of hope. So I may go back to that scripture, but I have to come with
Mm.
a different slant, to not just focus on the demons, but to focus on the hope
Mm.
and the love and the joy and the peace. It's that simple. Relying on each other. And when I can't do it by myself, well, then I've got to have some devotions. I got to turn on some of that. You were talking about music a while ago. I got to turn on some of that music that just really lights my fire. And it doesn't even have to be gospel. It just has to be something that just really touches my spirit. And we just have to have that few moments of devotion
Mm.
and make sure that we are keeping ourselves attuned every day to the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit will not lead us wrong. Just will not. It's impossible.
Mm. Well, Keith, thank
So
you.
hold on. It's not over yet.
Oh, yeah.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for being with us. And we're going to have you back at another point in the future to talk some
I
more.
would love it anytime.
We love having you with
Well,
us.
and our folks would like you in person too. So I'm going to have to get you to make a trip.
Yeah.
I'd love it. We'll
Okay.
make it happen.
Excellent.
Well,
I said
thanks
it
everyone for
online,
watching. Thanks
so people
everyone
know
for
it's going to happen.
Well, thanks everyone for watching them with us today. You can find this on sunshinecathedral.org, and I also put it on Facebook. We also put it on our YouTube channel, but you can find it on sunshinecathedral.org and click on the bishops, and you'll find it there. But Keith, thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Bishop
It'll
Watkins.
pop up on well, it doesn't matter when I say it'll pop up because you won't see it until it pops up anyway. But the
This will
day
be another.
the 23rd, right?
This will be another version of pop up. This is going to
Yes.
be
It'll pop up on the 23rd. But by the time you hear me say that, it'll be the 23rd. So whatever.
All right. Thanks everybody for being with us. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. Bye.